It's 7 o'clock on Thursday, February 27th, and I will call the Finance Committee meeting to order. I have with me in the room from the Finance Committee, Tom Parkins, Dina Hardes, Maury Creighton, Andy Olderman, and myself, Sarah Mellish. We have Peter Twining from the Finance Committee on Zoom. This meeting is being recorded. In addition, in the room, we have the Town Administrator, Greg Fetterspiel, the Town Accountant, Andrea Mainville, the Fire Chief, Jake O'Neilly, and 3 members of the Select Board, Kathy Bellata, John Round, and Ann Harrison. With that, the first item on the agenda is to discuss the revised fiscal year 26 fire department budget. And I believe people received things today or yesterday or whatever day it was.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
It was good.
Then you incorporated that, Andrea, from the website. So it is incorporated as the last column in this package as well.
This right-hand column.
Yes.
Okay,
As one of the options, or,
The last quarter option.
I see, okay, yeah,
and that's reflected in the tax rate calcs.
Yes.
Okay. Do people want to discuss all of the options or just the last option?
I guess maybe focus on the last option, because that's what's being presented in the budget, and unless there's, particular commentary that the chief has.
That's gonna confuse me. I should say this.
I'd like to, I know it doesn't seem like much to, go the extra route, hire them now, except for that 115, there's another 115, I think, in the benefits part, right? It's usually like for a salary, what's the multiplier, 1.5 or so, for like a low?
No, it's not that high. Probably another 30,000. All in.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the like a.
It's
private
less than
sector,
30%.
It's, yeah, it's around 26-27%.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know, the loaded rate.
A little less than you thought.
Yeah, quite a bit less.
So the fourth option is to bring on assistant fire chief or deputy fire chief, whatever you want to call them, in the last quarter of this year. Is that correct, chief?
Last quarter of,
Next fiscal,
yeah, FY 26. So a year and 2 months from now.
so April of 20.
Mhm.
Would you like to explain that?
Yeah, so obviously I've, as you know, I've been working diligently on the numbers and trying to make things work, both picture wise in the fire department, big picture wise in the town. I think the fire department really needs this position. So I was trying to find different avenues to make it palatable on the short term and in the long term. And that seems like option 3 would be the best option. Even though it's delayed, I think that we can make do in that short term, and some of the longer bigger projects are gonna be coming online. And that will line up kind of in with those projects.
And I would say, based on kind of what we've heard and what we talked about the last time when the chief was in, we can sort of, we've heard about the need for the deputy fire chief. I think for the sake of taking some pressure off the FY 26 budget, it certainly helps to have it mostly out of play for at least the first 3 quarters.
I guess I'd find it helpful just to maybe reiterate what the needs are. I know there's a burnout factor
A little bit.
a little bit. I also know that there's a business continuation issue here.
Yeah, so one of the, looking at the different areas of the fire departments that have come in, we've kind of analyzed where our weaknesses were. We've addressed a significant portion of those. One of the ones that we haven't been able to tackle is fire prevention. We're doing the bare minimum, like if somebody needs to sell a house, they need a certificate of, smoke detector inspection, things like that. Where that's the priority, obviously, because somebody can't sell houses. You guys have already heard about it. But the inspections that we're not doing, and not doing on a
Like our,
regular basis are like tank removal inspections. For instance, today we just got a tank removal inspection or a permit request, an oil tank removal. The removal has already taken place 3 days ago. They've just got accustomed to the inspection not happening, so they submit the permit after the work's been done. And that's not how it's supposed to work. But they just know that the inspection is probably not gonna happen, so they just backload all the permits. So that's just one example of, permits aren't getting done. In addition to the community risk reduction, getting out to our elderly population, to the schools, we're starting to do a little bit of that. We just don't have the depth to do what we should do. And try to minimize falls, things like that.
Hey,
go ahead, Dean.
on a little different note, but still fire, there was a service that you were looking at to, collect billings for, is that something we could do in-house, or is that? something-
Ambulance billing?
Yeah,
I don't think we'll touch that.
you don't wanna touch it, so it's worth every
Yeah.
bit to have.
Yeah, because they do, not only do they do the billing, they end up doing the collections long-term if we have to, track people down. And they do 4% of our collectibles.
So it's 4%.
4% of the
Okay,
collectibles, yeah.
We also have programs to like scrub the addresses to make sure they're mostly correct and everything. So
okay.
Yeah,
So
they audit it, so we
Yeah.
basically benefit from that, because our collectibles are like 89%.
I,
So they're doing a great job, and I
Yeah.
don't think we would get anywhere near that if we tried to do it.
okay,
I think collections is difficult for in-town people to do, the residents.
You're dealing with all different insurance companies. I mean, it's all the
different rates.
coding.
Yeah.
it's better to have a
HIPAA
specialist.
rules. It's just,
Okay.
I don't think it's an area we wanna go down.
Anything
Thank
else,
you.
Dean? Peter Twining, do you have any questions on this? Comments? Peter,
Is this audio muted? I see down there.
it is muted. You are muted, so if you're talking, we can't hear you. Maybe he stepped away.
Yeah.
His name's up there.
Yeah.
Okay, Maury.
I wonder if you can send
I
out.
don't have any questions. I think option 3 makes sense.
Gail, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, thank you. And Gar Morse has joined us. Okay, so Peter can hear us. He must have stepped away. Do you have anything?
No, nothing additional. I think option 3 is, seems like a reasonable approach for tackling it.
Gar, do you have any?
I agree.
Okay. I mean, I think that it's important for us to start looking at some of the safety
Mhm.
measures that perhaps we're not spending
Right.
time on, and it makes sense that this gives us a little more to do that. We've kind of beefed up the line of the chain of command in town hall. Kind of makes sense to kind of deal with the fire
Yeah.
department at the same time. Hopefully that's kind of the end of that.
So I don't know if we're talking about the safer grant.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
so the safer grant was something that, again, it's like hitting the Powerball. The notice of funding is probably gonna come out mid to late March or April. We wouldn't, if we were awarded it, we wouldn't know until September or, August or September. And we could use that potentially. It can't be filled to fill administrative roles, but it can backfill firefighter roles. We do know that we're gonna have 2 firefighters leaving for retirement purposes, and we just had one put in their notice of going up to Plastow to a non-transporting ambulance service. So we're in the process of backfilling that. The job opening's out right now. And, staying up on top of these things is important. A community nearby us is running with 33% of the staff remaining. So they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do. So being proactive in backfilling the spots as they go. So once this opening is filled, the hope is to basically put out another request for applications to create a list that will keep on file for 2 years. So that way our reaction time's a lot less than it would be if we had to go through the entire process. That way we don't see a bumps in overtime and things like that.
Makes sense.
Could,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, can you just give us like a summary of the sort of the training curve when you bring somebody on board? I know, you know, the day they become an employee of the town.
Yep.
There's a certain amount of training and then they kind of pop out of that and they're full-fledged.
So.
How does that look?
So it all depends on the candidate you get. We've been very lucky. Our last 3 candidates have come in with firefighter certifications. They've come in as a paramedic certification. So literally they do 2 weeks a days, they're on group, and then their officer they work with is assigned to basically do their onboarding, mentoring, community awareness, things like that. If they have nothing, then paramedic school is about, call it 2 years, rounding up a little bit, 1 3/4. And then the fire academy is 13 weeks.
Okay.
So it all depends. It could be 2 weeks a days and they're on the group, or it could be 2 years and they're on group. We've been very lucky, I think, with the change in kind of the personnel, their view and kind of the outsider's view on the town and the department has changed. So getting some good candidates in has been easier than it was in the past.
So if they're on that paramedic training,
Yep.
that's 2 years. They can obviously do a lot of things, but they have to be with somebody theoretically who has that full training. So that
Exactly.
kind of curbs your ability to move people around a little bit.
A little bit, right now, we're in a good spot because out of the 16 people, 15 are paramedics and
Okay.
one's an EMT. So we have that ability right now to be flexible and, you know, if they're in paramedic school, we can still utilize them if they're a firefighter because just give them time off to go to school. If they're not in school, we can still reap the benefits of them being an employee. So we just have to kind of work with the schedule to optimize it for their schooling.
Good, thanks.
How many positions do you apply for under the SAFER grant?
So we'll put in for 4. The reason being is that it's usually tied to meeting an objective, i.e. the 2 in, 2 out rule is if you say by getting these 4, you meet the objective 100% of the time, it puts us at the top of the list of the people that are applying. The most recent grant, obviously it could change. I haven't seen the notice of funding. The last one was 3 years, paid everything, and there was no requirement after the fact. Previous notice of fundings, it kind of ramped up and the town had to kind of gradually start paying. This last one, they paid everything for 3 years, and there was you weren't tied to anything after that. So it's a great way if we know we're gonna have attrition, it saves us a ton of money.
So we won't know for sure until we see the new,
Notice of funding.
right, and with the way things are in DC, we don't even, know they're gonna continue, so,
This is out of federal.
yeah, these are federal dollars.
What's the rough acceptance rate? I mean, if you were to take a guess at how many people apply and how many people are awarded.
Everybody applies.
Everybody applies. Is
It's
it like
very competitive.
10%, 5%, 50%?
It's probably less than 5%.
Wow.
We
Okay.
didn't get it last time, correct?
Correct.
And
And last time we weren't in the position, we weren't gonna meet a requirement 100% of the time, so it kind of reduced our.
okay,
Now with where we are staffing, we meet that grade of meeting that requirement.
Mhm.
but it doesn't mean we have to actually do that.
Correct,
Okay,
long term, I should say long term.
Right.
okay. Any other questions on the fire department? Yes, Mr. Round.
Yes, question, Chief, for the Assistant Chief that's planned for the last quarter of this coming year.
Yep.
Can we assume that there aren't any training or extra costs, because this is a person that knows a lot?
Correct, and the cost, there wouldn't be a cost because they'd be on an administrative schedule, so if we had to send them to a training, it would be when they're already working. So in all the, you know, if they were gonna go to some type of, you know, fire officer school, et cetera, those are offered to the fire academy for free, and then they're also working every day, so they have to go down to the fire academy for class.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, that's fine. And your expectation is a turnover of 2 firefighters this coming year? Or
Within the next 2 years, I expect at least 2 to go, maybe a third.
And the budget, as was discussed, the budget implications there, it's very tough to know where we're at.
Correct.
With the safer grants and what their background is, et cetera. So you can't really plan for
You
this.
can't plan it. I think we're in a much better position than we've been in historically.
Okay,
Would the deputy position be expected to have paramedic training?
Most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just adds for so much more flexibility,
Plus a familiarity with what the
with the staff.
what the department offers.
Yeah,
And then the second ambulance.
yeah.
Could you go out on runs?
I just did my IV the other day.
Lucky.
I got it too.
You're
Even
lucky
better.
you didn't-
Even better.
you're lucky you didn't have my arm. Nobody can get it. So the deputy chief would also go out on runs?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, okay. Any questions on the overall fire department budget? I know we've discussed it before. But that was a while ago.
And approval.
Wait a minute, let me see if Peter has any questions. Peter Twining, do you have any questions on the fire department budget? Peter, are you there? Yeah, but Gail came on, so he can hear us. Okay. Okay, you want to make a motion, Dean?
I moved that we pass the fire department for $1,963,330. Salary and expenses.
Second,
Maury seconds. Any discussion? Take a vote. Tom,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Maury,
yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Guy,
yes.
Sarah votes yes. Peter? He's not there.
Misinformation.
Okay. Okay, so fire is done.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wasn't as painful as you thought, huh?
No. I'll take it.
Easier than the last time.
Um, So is sanitation the only other thing we haven't done? And okay. So should we do sanitation? Do we know what page it's on?
There's one. Wasn't the whole budget book.
Yeah,
Should be the same.
Yep, 31.
Changed.
Yes.
Twice.
So as I mentioned, we did get the new contract from the Liberator, the disposal company, the incinerator up in Andover, North Andover. Showing a fairly substantial increase for this coming year. And then around 4% increases for in the out years.
For how long?
I believe it's a 5-year contract. 5 year, yeah, 5 year.
And
So that's, not a lot of choices out there. The landfills throughout the state are closing. They're not opening up new landfills. We are still a customer, so we're happy to still be a customer and they'll continue to service, but they are increasing the rates.
So, could you help me understand the FY25 budget was 239, so the effect of this rate increase only brings us to 240.
So the 239 was more than we needed.
Okay.
Over budget.
Was that expecting an increase at that time or is it?
It was,
Or from usage?
it was really based on a projection of volumes.
Tonnage, okay,
So it is tonnage based.
got it.
And so then looking at the actual from 23, we dropped. Let's be 24, 24 actual.
Right.
We were estimating just a small increase, but that increase is much higher. But if you look at the 25 that we budgeted,
It's not that much.
it's not that much more. It's only $1,000 more.
So is the requested amount for 2026, is that based on a similar tonnage to what we actually saw
Yes,
more recently? Okay.
yes, correct.
Now, are we gonna be able to leverage the sustainability committee to increase the amount of composting?
Yeah, we certainly hope so. Because this is weight based,
Right,
the more compost we can get out of the stream, we're definitely better off. So we're hit a bit of a plateau in terms of the number of people participating. Haven't seen much growth in that lately. I want to say it's about a third of the town.
we did that many.
It is, yeah. Might be pushing 40%. Be nice to try to get that up higher.
Maybe a little PR.
Yeah, so they've, the committee's been talking to Tiffany about doing another campaign.
And is it worth making the bins available again?
Yeah, so we do. We have bins.
We have bins, okay.
Um,
One thing that works best in other towns is when the residents can just bring the compost instead of putting it out at the curb.
You can take it to the,
To the site.
transfer,
Right,
center. They have a barrel there,
Yeah,
next to the recycling bin,
right,
and you can put it in there.
that I would,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah,
helpful,
it's probably not that well known, so that's another publicity.
yeah.
Yeah.
right, yeah.
effort.
Because I actually took it there once because I was going out of town and
Me too.
But
either
thi-
I wasn't composting for the week or I was gonna take it on Saturday.
This isn't the year we're gonna lose the orange bag revenue, it's the following year, right? Because we're gonna go to a different container system they were talking about.
Yes, so Republic will be requiring
With bins, kind of,
the automated
Yeah.
arm, the automated arm that
$100.
picks up the.
$100 barrels.
So we'll have to talk about what we want to do about that in terms of,
Is that FY 27 stuff though?
yes, yeah, most likely. They did talk to us a couple months ago about possibly making that transition sooner. But we haven't heard back from them, so we've put in a few calls and say, what's going on, folks? Because they did talk to us a couple months ago, possibly making that transition sooner and starting a new contract sooner, but
Giving free bins.
Has anyone considered making it a land at the dump, like a rental agreement with Black Earth? As opposed to compost collection? Like, if we had that land, say, if we had a bank of solar panels there, what income would we be getting off that land? And shouldn't we be charging a similar amount for their use of it? I mean, that might be a way to look at revenue streams down the road. But, because that,
so we're getting a pretty substantial discount on the compost pickup.
yeah, I don't think it would, it would match though, what we would get as regular.
So the next step, assuming they can reach a higher volume, if the board amends the contract to allow a higher volume of composting, then our compost costs will go down to zero.
Yeah, well,
So,
I think the other approach seems more reasonable to do a straight rental. But rather than that, but that's down the road too.
we have a contract with them now,
yes,
right? Right.
yes.
And for, what's the duration of that? I can't recall.
Well, it's a 10-year renewable contract.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting, so there's certain thresholds, so as more volume is handled, we get a bigger discount on our compost
Do we get payments at some point if it goes over a certain amount?
I'm sorry,
Do we get payments back if it goes, I thought if we got payments back, if it went over a certain amount,
over a certain amount, yeah, so then,
they had to pay us. Yeah, okay.
but first it goes to zero cost,
Right,
and then the next year would be payment.
you're not holding your breath for payment.
No. But to go to that level, I believe, if I'm remembering my numbers correctly, it would require an amendment to the DEP permit. I think that's above and beyond what's permitted.
Oh, okay.
That's not out of the question, assuming things are running well and
Yeah.
that sort of thing, but it would require revisiting that.
Do we have a sense of how many people in town are participating in that compost program? And I guess more importantly, is the trend holding or is it declining?
So it's holding.
Yeah.
I want to say it's in the high 30% range.
Yeah.
But it hasn't grown
Mhm.
lately.
Because if it declines down to a low point or zero, Dean's argument starts to make a lot of sense here, apart from the benefit of doing something environmentally sound. It's just,
Yeah, so it's something so DPW monitor, gets their quantities every, if it's monthly or quarterly.
mhm.
But we do track their volumes and how much participation we have from residents.
You know how they're
Hello? Hi, I don't know how to
Excuse me.
raise, how to
Could you-
raise, how to raise my hand.
Please state your name and address.
Sandy Rogers, 82 Old Essex Road. I'm speaking
Okay.
because I'm on the Sustainability Committee.
Yes.
The numbers that we have been hearing from Black Earth is that we are at over 50% of
Oh.
residents.
Behind
And
the top-
that is a very large amount versus other communities. So we are doing everything that we can to try to promote, and we'll be keeping on that to promote the composting. But to expect it to make a huge difference going forward, we would have to then really incentivize the commercial entities. So I have a question regarding, if the contract, and the amount of tonnage that we get from our commercial entities, the restaurants, like the clubs like Essex County Club and Yacht Club, we're trying to, sort of up the ante regarding what we can do to try to incentivize them. I don't know how much of the tonnage can be portioned out and understood between that, but just wanted to give you sort of an update on those numbers. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot.
Chuck has his hand up.
Chuck Dam. Go ahead.
How we doing? Yeah, I mean, I can speak to some of these numbers just real briefly. So they're starting out at 30 tons a week through the building, and so that's kind of the threshold. I'll have to check. I think Sandy's probably right that we're probably getting closer, maybe a little over 50% townwide, but that is not the entire 30 tons per week. So that number, that 50% number probably represents something like, I would say, somewhere between 7 and 10 tons a week. So that's what's coming from the town. And then they have other routes. This is supposed to be a regional facility. So no matter what, they always have to take any tonnage from the town first, and then they can supplement that up to 30 tons a week. And then we can add additional tonnage as the kind of process bears out. So kind of like what Greg was saying, if they're, meeting their odor requirements, if they're meeting their sound requirements, if the traffic's not bad, stuff like that, we and then DEP will allow them to up that tonnage on a weekly basis. So, like I said, always they're taking the town stuff, then they can supplement that. And then, so these things that Sandy was talking about for the, say the schools or the country club or anybody else, they could theoretically be part of that 30 tons a week. However, that's not taking and diverting tonnage away from, Wheelabrator, because that's, the commercial tonnage is separate of the town curbside program. So like,
Right.
these are all kind of things that have been considered and, kind of factored in, but there is definitely a path forward, I think, with what all of you guys are saying, whether it's increasing the tonnage, increasing the incentives, for that last 50% of, households and so on and so forth. But, it's just, we have to kind of let the process play out and make sure that they're meeting the kind of environmental requirements that they've said they will. That's all.
Thank you. On the town social media, Facebook, we have the little bin thing for recycling. Every week, there's a picture of a bin,
Uh-oh.
and it tells you, shows pictures of what you can recycle and what you can't recycle. I'm wondering if we could have a little compost bin
Oh, that's a.
explaining what you can
Mm,
recycle, and what you can compost and what you can't compost.
Great idea.
Because apparently they used to compost pizza boxes and now those are recycled.
PFAS.
Oh, is that what it is? Yes.
So it does seem as though a PR campaign to encourage our residents to take part in the compost posting program has a three-way benefit. One is that we help the environment with, obviously. The second is we reduce the poundage that Wheelabrator, is it Wheelabrator, picks up. And so we save money. And then
Yes.
the third way that we benefit is, it's a question. There is a third way.
We pay less for the compost service.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Yes.
I knew you were gonna pitch
I was
in.
gonna save you on the time.
Thank
John.
you.
Let's wrap
So
it up
there's a
on screen.
three-way benefit to composting if you're not composting now. The town benefits in three ways. Wow.
Sarah,
Hi, Peter.
I think there's a fourth way, which is if we gave better instructions about what is recyclable, that would also help.
Compostable.
In other words, be more precise about what to recycle, what's eligible, in what condition. I think that would help the recycling also.
Yeah, I think that there is something on the town Facebook page.
There is.
Address that.
Yes, I think it could be expanded to be more precise.
Okay,
There's always this argument about whether milk containers are recyclable, waxed paper
and they're not.
and that kind of thing. I think we could be.
Recyclable and compostable are two separate things, right?
Right.
Okay.
Peter's talking recyclable, we're talking compostable. But we need both up there. So we
That's
can
true. Yes.
figure it out.
I mean, maybe a topic for Tiffany is to create a contest here
Yes.
where people could weigh their recyclables and weigh their
Yes.
whatever. And if they
Yes.
hit 250 pounds, they get a free ice cream on the town at Captain Dusty's or something, And they're naming the cricket.
Sort of like
You know?
the yacht club gives out an ice award,
True.
have the compost award.
Exactly.
Black Earth now has something called the CHARM program.
Yes,
And that also takes the whole thing another step or two. If people were apt to know anything about that, I think it's worth some additional information on the CHARM program.
well, and it's my understanding that the residents of Manchester can put any type of textile and shoes on top of their compost bin, and it's picked up for free by Black Earth.
Yes, that's
So they
my,
don't have to pay for charm for the textile piece, and it can be rags, it can be donations, and I've done it many times. It's gotta be in a white plastic bag.
We'll have to talk about
Well, the biggest thing for Black Earth as well is the Board of Health qualified to oversee their testing program. I mean, they're bringing a lot of material into town to process, and we want to make sure it's not hazardous. One thinks of compost as not being hazardous, but who knows what people are putting in their compost bins and Lynn
They
and
do
Swampscott.
test- they do test their compost.
I know they do, but do we have the capability to oversee it? Because we're in a very environmentally sensitive area there.
So we have, I think it's quarterly testing now that we do by a third party. And that's, all those reports are submitted to DEP. So it's not Board of Health, it's DEP. But the town is required because it's, it's a closed landfill. So, and it's a transfer station, that the town is responsible for. So like all of these things are part of the permitting process that we went through to get Black Earth in there in the first place. And then we have to continue with that compliance going forward forever. So, this is all stuff that's been overseen.
Do I have a motion to approve the sanitation collection and disposal budget in the amount of $680,000?
So moved.
Second.
Gar moves, Andy seconds. Any more discussion? Take a vote. Tom,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Gar,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes,
and Sarah says yes. Okay. So we're done with that except for OPEB and the school. So we need to talk about the capital budget. And you sent us an email today about additional possible expenditures in capital.
Yeah.
I'm almost wondering if we should start with the OPEB discussion and whether we want to use reserves.
That's fine, but I do want to share some new information.
Okay, sorry.
That came through later today.
Yeah,
So there, and I'm talking about the rotunda. So the rotunda, we're anticipating the ability to go after two grants, $1 million apiece. Seacoast Economic Development Council, something like that. Seaport Council monies for $1 million, which we're pretty confident in, since they have funded the design work, and typically when they fund the design work, they are pretty amenable to funding construction. And we were hoping then to submit a second grant to CZM, Coastal Zone Management, for $1 million. They have much less money to give out. They had 25 million, now they only have 5 million to give out. So there's no way we're gonna get $1 million grant from them. And I'm doubtful that we will rise to the top. As this, looking through their criteria, they just released it today on a video conference, where they're looking for projects that are gonna protect people from harm. Rotunda is not gonna rise to the top.
well, you could fall off if it gets wrong.
You could.
You could fall farther if they were, yeah.
So I'm skeptical
Okay,
of that $1 million coming through.
so what's the total cost for the rotunda?
Total cost is 2.3.
2.3, and
So
we had 3 from,
We had 3 from
CPC.
CPC. I'm wondering if we ask that to be boosted to 5,
okay,
and then grab another 8 from fund balance. And give Chuck another 2 in road projects. As the note indicated, we're probably underestimating repaving costs.
I would rather put 200 into OPEB than put it into.
You've got a major road that you need to repave, so the Pleasant Street Road needs to.
Well, we paid for that last year. We have that in the budget for last, the bond for Pleasant Street repayment. Yes.
Some of that money is going to, well, Chuck, help us out.
Chuck,
No, that's the water main was the bond. So there was three projects, the water main, the PFAS, and the meters. So we do have some paving money in the budget, but it's not going to cover the basically the inflation over the past year, when, because that the paving has an escalation in it anyway, but we're rebidding it now. So it just, it was based on the previous years.
How much do we have in this year's budget? The fiscal year 25, and how much have we spent?
I'd have to defer to Greg and Andrew. I don't have it in front of me. But I mean, I think we're probably short 400,000 based on the email that I sent to Greg. I don't know the precise numbers off the top of my head.
Back to the rotunda.
So hold on. Well, so the debate about, so we have about $1 million that you could use in addition from the fund balance to get down to that 8% target. So you have up to 1.1 that you can allocate. My strong sense from the community is that they're not gonna want to see that rotunda collapse and
I agree with that.
and go away. So I do think that's a priority.
That's a priority over the Reed Park stuff. I mean, because that's the same grant, right?
What are you talking about? He's saying we
If
have a
it-
$1 million grant for Rotunda.
Right. If
That's
we-
not talking about Reed Park.
But we're short the other million, right?
The most you can get for any one project from Seacoast is 1 million.
Right. So would we prioritize the rotunda over the harbor if there is a limited grant pool?
So we don't have any money going to Reed Park, town money. That's all potentially grant funded,
From the economic seaport, from the same people that were asking for the rotunda.
already awarded.
So I'm just saying, can we
They're not,
go
they're not
with
gonna allow us to-
priority?
they're not gonna allow us to shift it. So we can request an additional million for the rotunda. And like I say, because they have funded the design, I'm pretty optimistic that they'll grant that.
It sounds like we could set a priority between the rotunda or the Reed Park with that money, but it's our
He's
choice.
expecting a million from Seaport Council for Rotunda. And he's saying you can't have more than $1 million for a project.
So we already have $1 million from the seaport.
That's what he's expecting.
Okay, okay.
It's-
Well, I'm
it's
just
the
trying to
C-
arrange the priorities.
It's a CZM that's the issue,
Okay.
right?
Right.
So you're thinking
So-
a million from the CZM, and you're thinking CPC goes from 300K to 500K, and then we pull 800 out of fund balance, which gets us to 2.3.
Yes. And, so that, we don't have a bid yet. That's, that 2.3 has a contingency in it, so. If we were lucky, it would come in a little lower and we wouldn't need to spend them.
Mhm.
But it could go the other way as well, so.
Do we have any monies in this fiscal budget that we're expecting to go into free cash at the end of the year?
So you have your library,
150.
150.
So just back on the rotunda thing for a moment, that's gone through all the engineering, it's gone through the permit. Does the permit have a 30% contingency in it? I presume Foth Engineering's doing this work.
Yes.
And
I
are they,
don't remember the exact percentage.
See, design or construction?
Construction, yeah. Yeah, we're done with design.
So the 2.3 you're saying includes a
Yeah.
30%.
and so the 2.3 is a pretty hopefully safe number,
That's what,
depending on contractor from
correct.
north or south.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, in the past, we've gotten good bids.
Right, hopefully, again.
Hopefully, nobody else will have grants so that people will be looking for work.
That's true.
That's one way to look at it.
That's a silver lining, I guess. But yeah,
So Greg, with so by that apportionment, additional to make 5 from CPC, hopefully. And the split that you were talking about, leaving 200K for the road resurfacing ad still leaves us 200K shy for that road resurfacing, if I was understanding Chuck correctly.
Greg's only asked for 200K.
I understand.
Chuck's just throwing out 200K now.
I assume it's not out of thin air though.
You see the freeze thaw season that we're having, the
No, no,
roads
no,
are
I'm-
really going down.
No, I mean, it's an educated guess.
Yeah.
For the 400.
Right, so, you know, just like Greg was saying, you know, hopefully the bids come in good for the rotunda, you know, we're hoping the bids come in good at paving and, you know, one way or another, I'll make it work. It's just the 400K would make me feel good about it. And, you know, like I always say, if I don't spend the full 400K, you know, it'll go towards the next road, or the next road.
Okay, okay.
I'll figure it out. But, you know, 400 was the, you know, we were trying to spend $1 million. That was the number. If I can get 200, then I'll make sure we use it wisely.
Okay.
So can I just ask a question here on the sheet? I think you sent us, Andrea, earlier today. Looks like road resurfacing is 300K. So are we talking about 300K to 400K? Or are we talking about a different amount?
Adding 200,
Adding 200 to the 300 for,
is that what you're saying? Or I
because
don't
I'm looking at the DPW line on
know.
the
It's for
article.
300.
Yeah, 300, exactly.
So it would be an additional 200 on top of the 300.
Okay, all right.
The 400 or whatever. So that's the 300 is town money. There's also chapter 90 on 150. On top of that,
Is chapter 90 strictly state funds or is it a federal pass-through?
it is state fund, yeah.
And they've talked about increasing chapter 90.
They did.
correct?
Yeah, so the governor has proposed
Yeah.
50,
Is that in the budget that's out there to be approved?
that's in her budget.
Okay,
We got a long way to go on the state budget, so we won't know until July.
if we're lucky.
Yeah, if we're lucky.
Right, and that's the other thing is my hope is to, you know, the money for roadway, whatever it ends up being, is available at town meeting. So, you know, we Greg's right, we do have some chapter 90 that we haven't spent from this year. But you know, the available, you know, what we count on in the FY26 budget for chapter 90 is not available from the state until 7/1. So I'm looking to line this up so that we can do this work as soon as possible after town meeting, based on, you know, potential detours and whatnot come fall. So this is kind of how this is all lining up.
So what I want to know is what the budget is for fiscal year 25, including the chapter 90. And what have we spent it on and what do we plan to spend? Because we just allocate money every year. And we never get an accounting of what it's spent on and how much is
Right.
left.
Right.
Right. Well, so we do. So we did Walker Road this year. So that was the big one. Andrew, you'll have to help me out if you have it in front of you. I don't have it in front of me, but we have. No, we just did Walker Road. You said FY25. So we had
You did it
FY20.
For July, didn't you?
No, that was
No,
we
no.
did the water main last year, last winter. We did Walker Road was in September, October,
September.
because
We had 700,000 for drainage last year, for the road resurfacing last year.
Plus the chapter 90. Chapter 90 is not included in that.
Chapter adds in, yes, 850.
right. So I believe I have around 300,000 in Chapter 90 funds that are unspent today. So that's part of the money that will be spent on Pleasant Street
That's what I thought.
for paving. And so, you know, I think we will have a shortfall. You know, my estimate was around 900,000 last year when we, you know, executed the Pleasant Street work on the water main. The current estimate, which includes contingencies, and it might come in better, is about 1.3. So that's where I'm getting the 400 delta. Now, like I said, we have some money still available from FY25. We still have some money from Chapter 90. But if I add up all these buckets, we're not at 1.3. So that's all I'm trying to cover. If we can do it, you know, then great. If not, you know, I have other levers I can pull when it comes to doing a mill and overlay versus doing a full reclaim. And, you know, I can do 1.5 inches a top versus 2 inches a top, or, you know, I have other levers that I can do within the design and construction. But if we want the best possible outcome for a 20-year road, then, you know, I'm thinking I need about 400,000. So that's where this is all coming from.
You're throwing a lot of numbers at us. I'm sorry. You said
Sure.
you're expecting Pleasant Street to be 900K. And then
last
you
year.
changed it to 1.3 million.
Right, so 900,000 last year was, you know, when we were lining up that, you know, when you said we had 700,000 in the budget and so far, so on and so forth, the 300,000 from chapter 90. That contract was up, so it expired, it was only through calendar year 24. You know, the work will take place in calendar year 25, so we do a 3-year on-call paving contract. Based
Okay.
on the quantities of Pleasant Street and, you know, suspected escalation and inflation, the estimate that we're looking at is for the same job is about 1.3. So that's the 400,000 difference. Now, that is a full reclaim, sidewalks, curbing, you know, it's not new curbing, but it's reset the existing curbing, all that stuff. So that is, you know, that's a 20-year life cycle job. That's how we've been doing it. That's what we did on School Street. That's what we did on Walker Road. You know, so that's how we like to do things. If I don't have that money available, or if the bids come in, you know, not advantageous, then I will go to a mill and overlay and we will do it a different way and I will get the job done. But that's not to say that's how I want to do it. That's just what it will be necessary.
Is there an engineering recommendation for full depth at Pleasant Street?
I mean, if you drive down Pleasant Street, I would say it's pretty obvious. So, you know, so this is not a new road or a good road. I don't know what they did the last time they paved it, but we did do the service connections in 2018. And so that was already, you know, it was already a deteriorated road.
Peter, do you have any comments on this?
I'm sorry, did you ask me a question?
Yeah, do you have any thoughts on this road resurfacing mess?
None that are particularly unique. I'm very sensitive that we try to do the job that Chuck wants. But I'm still a little confused by where we are with the numbers. The 400,000 is a new number to me, and I'm not sure I understand where we can source that money.
So perhaps we can just review the revenue that we think we have, the dollars that we have. So you have that, Andrea, so Chuck, try to do that.
The revenue for.
So we have,
Right now,
Chuck, I think you said we have about 300 in chapter 90 monies,
302,000.
302, all right, that's about 300.
Good guess.
So currently that's in the bank.
Yeah.
And any unspent 25 paving money.
We have 195,000 right now in the road maintenance account.
195. Okay, so I think we have the 3 buckets. We have
We have 500K approximately currently in bank.
approximately 500.
Yep.
The request was for 300 more in town money, and then the 150 more in chapter 90. A little bit of timing issue because of that chapter 90, as Chuck said, doesn't become available.
That's 950.
Sometimes they try to, so that would be the 950, which would have paid for the original project.
Right.
Okay, so that's how that was the original thinking.
Yep.
So now if the 900 becomes a bigger number, that's where the request for additional dollars comes from.
And on what basis are we calculating this upcharge?
So Chuck, have you had some conversations with contractors or other?
Right, so we have to bid this contract. So it's a unit-based contract, so it's, you know, based on tonnage of asphalt, structures, linear foot of curbing, sidewalks, the whole, you know, driveway aprons, all that. So we have a quantity takeoff design, you know, engineered design. That's what the quantities are based on for Pleasant Street. And then we apply, you know, we don't even apply escalation to the previous contract. What we do is we look up the DOT numbers on the DOT website that's based on, you know, DOT bidding. And so, you know, based on that that accounting, at those unit quantities, the number came out to 1.3. So that, that's just how every project goes. We estimate it before we put it out on the street. Like I said, I have some other levers I can pull, but Greg asked me if we had additional capital needs, and I said, we're likely looking to be short on roadway.
Sarah,
Yes, Peter.
is there also a timing issue here, Chuck? Where the chapter 90 funds are not available until July 1st? I wasn't sure if you were also indicating that that was a timing issue also for you.
Right. So we have the 300, we try and save up these chapter 90 years, for things like this. So like Andrea said, we have about 300 in the, from prior years, FY24 and FY25. So that 300, I will plan to use that to, make this work. The 150 that, is in this year's budget for FY26, we don't get that passed down from the state until July. So I don't really have that 150 available for the Pleasant Street project, assuming we try and get it done ahead of 7/1, which is my intent.
I see. So there is a timing issue because the 150 will not be available until after you'd like to get the project done.
Correct.
So essentially those funds remain unavailable as a practical matter to be applied to the Pleasant Street resurface.
So the next line item is 400,000 for drainage, sidewalks, and sidewalk improvements.
All right.
So some of that drainage number will go into to Pleasant Street, because we do have some drainage work that needs to be done. We will have castings that need to be replaced, stuff like that. Some of that is included in the 1.3 million. Some of it will not be. The pipe work will not be. So that is stuff that will get used. So that is part of the bucket that we will dip into.
So how much do we have drainage, sidewalk improvements from last year? This year, whatever.
Yeah.
Carry these over, Andrea.
I do.
Okay,
Exactly.
Right.
so what do we have unspent on that line item?
So for the road paving, we have the 195
Yep.
right now. Assuming that we're not gonna spend anything before June 30th. And then for the drainage and sidewalks, we have 130,000.
130.
Right, but that has to go towards, that doesn't just go towards Pleasant Street. That goes towards street sweeping in the spring, catch basin cleaning in the spring, and there's other maintenance stuff. So even the 400,000 that you're looking at for FY25 or FY26, that all gets, there's other things that goes towards every year.
So we have nothing left over in that line item from fiscal year 25.
That's right.
We'll have some amount that carries over, but it's not the full whatever Andrea.
Fiscal year
numbers had.
24. Fiscal year 24, did we have any left?
The fiscal year 24, I carried over $92,000.
But that's now been drawn down, so that line, the balance is today, whatever Andrea just said before that. That 92 has been included.
That 95 was carried forward and was part of the bucket. And that bucket now stands at 130.
So sort of back to Peter's question about a timing, don't we have the same timing question with the town? Because we'll vote on this in end of April, but we can't spend it till July
If
1,
it comes
right?
out of free cash.
Unless we take it out of free cash.
I mean, we were looking at, Peter and I were interning with the DPW, and we were talking about an $800,000 drainage sidewalk and a $4 million capital to kind of tread water with maintaining those were good numbers that we could. And, the capital this year is 2 million below that because of all these extra operating stuff for the government and everything. Or whatever, for whatever reason.
You can't forget the amount of capital we had in for DPW last year that's
Right.
being bonded.
And we still have more to do.
7.5 million.
I know. Okay. I'm just saying that the burn rate is, I think Chuck is justified with the 400,000. to finish the paving. And the thing is that we're shortcutting the capital this year.
We haven't
boost.
finished yet.
Okay. We have,
I mean, we purposely had higher capital last year that was flowing into this year because we were going to bond it. So yet last year's was in effect 2 years worth of capital, if you look at 7.5 million that way. Right?
right. Well, we were taking a break from the capital by design to give the taxpayers a break this year before the bond next year.
So you said 1.1 million in free, to get down to the 8%, we can add the 150 to that also, right? Because we know that's going in at the end of the year in the library.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So 1.25.
1.25. And you want 800 for the rotunda, which is, leaves only 450. So we have nothing extra to put in the open.
I think we're still on a good track with that.
Yeah, but here's my concern, Andy. The next 4 years of capital is assuming a 2.5% hit to the tax rate every year, plus the normal 2.5% from operating, plus whatever the schools are. Where our OPEB annual contribution is 1% tax rate. So if we were able to fund a larger portion out of that, out of free cash, that's gonna reduce the impact on capital
Make more available, sure.
next year. Now, the other question I have on OPEB is, once that's fully funded, am I correct that we start paying premiums out of it?
Right.
And what,
So that's a double savings.
right, and what type of money is that? Do you have any idea? It's just for the retirees, right?
Correct.
I think it's in the $600,000 range. I believe. I was hoping Dan could talk more about it
Okay, okay.
next week.
So I did do a third version of the facility, long-range facility, where I tried to do every other year at 2.5 extra.
Okay,
And so it went, you know, this FY 26, 0.
Yep.
FY 27 had basically 2.5 additional. And then 28 had a 0.5% additional. And then back up to 2.5 additional, down to 0.5%. So I tried to stretch out a little bit, because I, you know, every year an extra 2.5 is just probably not gonna fly, right? That's just pushing too much.
well, we've been hearing about it on social media since you said it at the school.
I'm sure you have.
Yes.
They latch right onto that. They didn't hear the fact that I said, you know, that's probably not doable, but anyways.
But anyway, it just, it's obviously that there is going to be some pushback.
Yeah,
That's
no
all.
question, no
Yeah.
question. So, I mean, the OPEB, if we just sort of say the course is fully funded in 4 years, right, and then Sherman's new projection.
I think no, I think if we stayed the course, it's shorter. Right, aren't we putting in,
3 years,
oh. If we do 330 this year, which is what's in the budget, right?
right,
And 360 and 27, then we have only 144 and 28.
right, so 3 years, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think that's really good. That's ahead of schedule.
Get
And
this off the table.
Okay,
And just to be clear,
and I haven't, so I actually I didn't take full advantage of that in that third version. I just did. No, I think.
can you do that?
I could, that'll lower those percentages by another %, actually.
Okay, yeah, if you can adjust your third version,
Uh,
take this, assuming we make this,
That would take 1% off every year. So my 2.5 now becomes 1.5, and my 0.5% goes
Better.
away.
Yeah.
Better.
That's starting to become within reach. That's starting to become doable.
And particularly if we can start paying the premiums out, because you're talking a big number, paying premiums
Well,
out.
that's what I'm saying. I haven't
Yes, yeah.
counted the premium payment.
Oh, the premium,
I just,
okay,
I just counted the
the 330.
330. I didn't double.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
So I'm shorting myself 1%. So that's actually very helpful.
That's good.
So Greg, just relative to the rotunda, if that money is sort of is put together, that 2.3. That project will happen in next fiscal, this coming fiscal
Happen a
year.
year from now.
Year
No,
from
it
now.
would happen in 26. FY 26.
Which we're working on.
Right,
So it would happen next winter,
okay.
late November, December timeframe.
What's the duration? Is it
Oh, it's probably,
4-month
well,
project?
there's masonry work there that'll be in the spring, so.
They're limited as to when they can work in the water, I
Right,
think.
so it's
I see.
probably a 5-month project,
Okay,
4 to 5 months.
okay. I know sometimes these municipal projects end up, we plan for it and then it gets pushed out.
Right,
So, we're fretting over like a certain situation that may not come to pass. That's the only kind of thing I'm throwing out there.
yeah, I don't, and I'm on pins and needles right now with that rotunda lasting
Yeah,
rest of the winter and summer.
Do we have the permits?
Yes, it's all permanent,
Okay, so we just have to go out to bid?
right. And to do that, we need the money.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
so, I just,
Is there
I'm
any
hoping to pray that it
historical,
lasts.
So,
historical restoration grants that we might be able to look at for the rotunda?
Yeah, they're just not out there.
we're losing, everything's drying up, all the grants are drying up in quite a while. So if it's appropriated at the town meeting, you can go out to bid after town meeting, even though it's not new fiscal yet.
Yes, correct. Yeah, as long as we know it's been approved.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait to the CZM grant, we should know by late spring, I think.
Right, which would then mean,
I mean, Seacoast, did I say CZM?
yeah, you said CZN.
I
The sea-
meant Seacoast.
Oh, Seaport, Seaport Council, right?
Seaport Council.
I wrote down. And CZM, we're gonna apply for,
We'll apply, but
and when will we hear on that?
same timeframe.
Okay,
Should be late spring, early summer.
so that would just reduce the amount we pull out of free cash. We have it for next year.
Does the AG certifies our town meeting? And does that also mean the budget that's approved? And is there any delay there? Do we not have to worry about that? Or is that only for like articles that are,
AG does so.
AG doesn't approve our
okay,
monetary things. The DOR does when we set the tax rate in the fall,
yep.
that's all that recap process.
But we shouldn't, once we have a positive vote, town meeting, then we should be pretty clear. to-
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, absolutely.
Does DOR approve our actual budget or our free cash and,
I think it's very good.
They certify our free cash.
okay,
And they approve our tax rate, and part of the tax rate is certifying the votes, making sure that what we voted is covered by the tax rate or estimated receipts, and it's reasonable and things like that. If we ask for like a pie in the sky, even if the town meeting voted it, the DOR could say, no, I don't think that's reasonable. I think, you're not gonna make it. So we'll certify it, like go back to the table and redo it.
and that's why you say you can't increase the projected revenue more than 10% unless you document it, because that's
Yeah, unless I
something they
approve it.
question.
Exactly. If I approve to say like, okay, yeah, building permits is gonna go up like, 25%, they're gonna be like, well, how does that happen? And I'm like, well, we actually increased our permit fee, like the fees,
Yeah,
25%. And they'll be like, oh, okay, all right. And we think you're gonna get that money then.
and have we figured out anything about fees for building fees for CST?
So they indicated they would be applying, basically next January. So that'll be in 26.
Okay. And do we have any sense of the number?
They were reluctant to give me a number.
I've heard that the biotech industry is slowing down quite a bit. So they're probably not in as much of a rush to.
I mean, I fully expect the project to go forward. I'm
Yeah,
not-
I do too. It's just,
I think there's more dynamics involved in this
Absolutely.
situation.
How many square feet are they building? Like 300,000, 400,000 square feet?
there was 2 phases.
Okay,
Phase
well,
one,
cut it in half. So it's 400,000 square feet. They're building 200,000 square feet. It's gonna cost at least $400 a square foot. So 400 times 200 with 3 zeros attached, it's gonna be $80 million, I think. I don't know, maybe that's wrong.
Oh, at least.
And so, what is the millage on building permits?
$6 a thousand.
$6 a thousand, so 6 times 8,000. 6 times 8 is 48. So the building permit's gotta be $50,000, I think,
No.
if not
480.
500.
100,000.
Lost to zero, it's 500.
500,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So there you go.
and that's why the question is,
Actually, probably.
do we,
Maybe more. Right, because I think
do
that's,
we include that as revenue for fiscal year 26? Which then gives us $500,000 more to spend
well,
on
let's not,
capital.
we probably have it, but I think probably not wise to spend it right away.
Okay,
Yeah, I wouldn't plan on it.
okay.
Yeah, I just think that's good FY 27 money. for capital.
Okay,
Sarah, I'm not clear on where we've gotten to on this question of the roadway.
so I think that what we've gotten to, Peter, is to increase the road resurfacing to say 400,000 will come from fund balance.
Yeah, right.
We're going to add an item for the rotunda, which will have 800,000 from fund balance. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then we have no money left in free cash to spend.
So essentially exhausted free cash.
Right,
Exhausted,
we're down to the
We're down to
8%,
your-
which is our, we're $50,000 over our 8%, which is the target.
Yep.
But normally, usually at the end of the year. Oh, no, we have 150 more, right?
That was part of the 1.25.
Oh, yeah. So we're including the 150,000 from the library, which is gonna go into free cash at the end of the year
Got it.
from this fiscal.
And where's chapter 90?
It doesn't show up here.
Okay,
That's a slush fund.
right.
So Andrea, just curiously, where do you think we're gonna end up on free cash at the end of this year? I know we still have 5 months plus, but what's your sense?
Since I haven't done like a full run through, but like just a quick run through, I was thinking like 300,000, not including the 150 right now. But that's very conservative and very quick. run
So we
through
have
right now.
300,000 more to spend?
No, it just helped.
We can put it into
So-
OPEB.
Have you seen receipts yet from, is all that pretty mapped at this point? You know, like excise and
Yes.
everything, so you kind of know where that's gonna be for the year at this point.
For the most part, yeah, I've gotten the commitments for the motor vehicle. Motor vehicle comes in last month and this month.
Yeah.
Elections are usually very stable, so.
The other big wild card is the TBW facility. Right now, we're planning to do 660 as a capital exclusion. I mean, could we adjust that if we needed more money as well?
I don't think we're in a position to put more money into DPW at this point. We're spending an awful lot of money in DPW, and I don't see that.
So I'm showing 864.
Well, again, the 660 is part of capital exclusion. I'm saying, rather than, so it's really. I don't know, isn't the capital exclusion bucket, can we put the 860 all in the capital exclusion?
That raises taxes.
That just raises taxes, yeah.
A capital exclusion increases the tax rate for that year only. Because it's a cash payment.
Okay, we don't wanna do that. Okay,
Yeah,
so, okay. So right now, we only have 200,000 coming out of taxation for the,
But plus the 660. So it's 860 in total.
and that's basically the DPW because of the site costs, right?
That's to advance the design.
Yeah, but I mean, it's an admin building and some bins. So the main cost is in the site development, I would think.
I think design is a certain percentage of the total. cost of the
Usually, but
building.
I mean, is there any part of the existing DPW facility that can be moved up there? Or is that building gone?
Certainly not the building.
Right.
There may be a couple lifts inside that we would bring over, but that's pretty minimal in terms of the overall project costs. Yeah, we'll be ready to give a much bigger overview on the DPW facility and potential options for public safety campus, but we're kind of probably a few weeks out, after you guys finalize the budget to do a bigger show and tell with you and obviously the select board.
Have they finished the geotech work?
They finished the initial geotech work. They finished the geothermal boring. They did do the site survey. I think we will to supplement the campus design. We need to do another round of geotech, which is included in the budget. So they should be actually either they may have already done that or maybe waiting after this thaw to do it. But so that's the kind of the information to kind of get to the next step, which take a few weeks to a month.
So there's been no showstoppers so far.
No, actually, the initial geotech was good. There's definitely some fill and some boulders, but we think no net import or export of soils and no bad rock or unsuitables.
Question?
Yes, Mr. Round.
Yes, just curious, the requested was 1.75 million and what was recommended was 860. Is that because there are certain activities that have been deferred to fiscal 27? Or was the 1.75 number a high ball or?
It's being deferred.
No, okay, so yeah, it's not,
We're paying for about 50%.
it'll happen eventually.
It'll have to be done.
This is about 50% design.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So we're hoping that gets us, completely through like the permitting set. So we can make sure that, Concom is happy, planning board is happy, DP or anybody else that needs to look at things is happy. And then we'll move to final design in FY27. There's also, we have been mulling around with the project team about doing alternative delivery method. So more of a construction management at risk model versus a design bid build, which is your kind of traditional horizontal construction. So these are things that we might be able to utilize to do a better project.
And I think we've gone over all the rest of the capital items. Is that correct?
So I have one additional request.
Yeah.
So the library, originally, we had the 200,000 for the windows and repairs. That
Okay.
project, we took that out because they're getting CPC money.
Right.
And I would like to request that we use that 200,000 to advance the design work and the little process for the senior center. And then that would get eventually be paid through the fundraising, but in order to advance it and to create the concept drawings and the renderings that we need to do the fundraising, you need to do that design work.
We talked about that before. I think.
Yeah, I have a serious concern with that. And I think that when we purchased that building for $1 million, we were told that fundraising was gonna occur for all the renovations, which is a couple of million, probably more. And it would seem to me that in order to show that there really is an interest in donations, that the library, I mean, the senior center should be able to come up with the 200,000 in donations to move the design forward. That's not much money if you're talking about raising a total of 2 or 3 million. And I really am concerned about continuing to invest town money. If there, I mean, we approved that building almost a year ago. They've had a year to start raising money. I haven't seen a campaign.
Right, so we hired a consultant last month
Yeah.
to develop a plan and to identify high donors. And that work will take place between now and the end of summer. And then the goal and target was to start serious fundraising then in the fall.
Was the budget for the hiring of the consultant on that fee?
It was from a state grant. We did receive,
State grant.
we did receive a state earmark, but yes.
I don't know what other people think, but it just concerns me. I just see this whole project costing the town a lot of money.
I agree with you, Sarah. This has and I'm not saying, I don't doubt the necessity or the justification for having a senior center. However, it has the earmarks of, even though we're going through a thaw, a slippery slope, shall we say. And I think it is incumbent on the leadership at the senior center to evidence their commitment to what's going on. And this is a great way to do that. That would be my opinion.
Sarah?
Yes, Peter.
I agree with what Gar just said. I think it would give us greater confidence that there's a real support for what I think is quite a good sized hurdle yet to go. If the folks could put together the money for supporting the fundraising. I just want to note my support for what Gar just said. I think it's well said.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Tom,
I agree.
Steve,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Lauren,
I agree with this, yeah.
Andy. So we don't like the 200,000.
You're gonna love the idea of having a bond vote. Which is,
Right, I would,
so the select board has voted to move forward with a bond vote. Not to authorize, but not to actually issue the bond. So that's ready to go when the fundraising hopefully is successful, and some of that fundraising will involve pledges over multiple years. So you need upfront money. So you would need the bond to go forward.
I think it's premature.
I hear that.
There's not gonna be any building for a while.
So the goal would be to start construction a year from now. So we would.
We bought $1 million bill. Does it cost that much to, 200,000 a design to?
Oh, the renovations are gonna be massive.
It'll be a renovation and an addition. It'll
Oh.
be a $2.5 million construction project.
In addition to the 1 million we are.
Yeah,
Correct.
and that will escalate. Construction costs are not going down.
Do we have a document that sort of shows we've looked at these chunks of capital, that we have in front of us, like the DPW, the potential for safety
Yes,
building.
yes, I've got a new like I said, I got version 3, but I shorted us a little bit on this.
Okay, because I find it a little confusing sometimes to talk about these projects in isolation.
Because I don't think the library is on that plan at all,
I don't show a library on this one. I don't show the senior center on this because
right? I'm saying library, I meant senior center, I'm saying, yeah.
I don't show the senior center on it because, again, I don't think we go forward with it unless it's and through donations. But, you know, it's a bit of a chicken or the egg syndrome. I think it presents a pretty strong message to potential donors that the town is serious about going forward with it. Here's the design, here's the fundraising plan, here's the bond to do it once we have those dollars pledged. And then to have that fundraising take place in the fall. And by January, you have a very good sense of where you are. And in the meantime, you finish your design, you've gone out to bid. And you're ready to roll come February, March of next year, assuming the fundraising has been successful, but you don't do it unless that fundraising has been successful.
I take a different approach, and I've made generous contributions to certain capital campaigns. And my personal opinion is if the town goes out with a bond, then I know if I don't contribute, the town's on the hook. So I think, I
Well, we're not on the
personally
hook.
think
We
it's
don't
a
issue the bond.
disincentive for people to donate. If the town's already committed to spending the money.
Yep,
That's
I
my
hear
personal
that,
opinion.
I hear that logic.
Mr. Round.
I'm just wondering, so that the fundraising group has been hired, or we've got some sort of arrangement, whatever it is.
Yes,
Are they aware of this concept? And I'm curious what their opinion.
yeah,
would be.
they've seen it both ways.
Okay,
Um,
it's very important what they think, because that affects their ability to be able to marshal the raising of money.
They've seen it be successful both ways. And, you know, of course, we talked about Gloucester's effort and how they've done their
I
library.
mentioned that library.
So it's a private library, but the city has fronted the money, they approved the bond. And it's to be repaid through the fundraising. Now, they've gone ahead with construction before they raise the money. I'm not
They're still
suggesting,
short.
I'm not suggesting we do
Yeah,
that.
they're still short.
I'm suggesting we wait and make that decision until a year from now, after we've seen whether or not the fundraising is materializing.
So why can't we put the bond on next year's town meeting? Why do we have to do it this year? If we're not even gonna start construction until about the time of next year's town meeting, it just seems premature to me.
Right, again, it's just that different, those two different approaches. Some people feel it sends a strong message to go ahead and have that pre-approved. And your perspective, Sarah, and I respect it, is that that's it sends a negative message. Some people think it's a positive, some people think it's a negative. It's two different perspectives on the same issue.
What are the sense of the other members of the board?
I'm having a hard time with it, honestly, because I can see both sides of it.
I think we bought the building.
I mean, there's the commitment, right?
That shows a commitment.
That's the
Right.
commitment.
I mean, and I
We
get
spent $1
that,
million.
like, and I don't quite see the discouragement factor in waiting to bond it next year if that's in fact the way to go. And I think, you know, John makes a good point, but I think it'd be good to understand what the consultant might recommend, if that's possible. Because I think, the other thing to think about, I think that probably the school vote for funding Essex, the Essex project will probably be fall town meeting, 26,
Next fall?
this fall.
You don't think it'll be next spring?
I don't think so. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it's one or the other, but they'd have to move pretty quickly to make it for next spring.
Yeah.
Some of the projections that I saw last night, you know, had it as like a fall 27.
To reiterate what Andy just said, I think, why wouldn't we ask the professional fundraisers which direction they think is more effective?
Yeah, right, we can push that and see if they give us.
They do this for a living, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm happy to get the more definitive, the brief conversation, they said, well, we've seen it both ways. But I didn't ask, which one do you prefer? I said, have you seen it both ways? And they said, yes.
Impressive of you.
Well, I think in particular, we're asking for their advice on our particular circumstance, right? Yeah.
I'd like to keep supporting the senior center, but you know, can we put off some of the painting, window and door repairs in the town hall? There's 200,000 there. can we maybe put that off and do some work towards furnishing the senior center? I mean, it's all a matter of choices and priorities to me, but.
No,
Oh, that's under-
That's pulled
that's-
off anyway. That was the
That
windows
was the
paid
window.
for by CPC for the library.
The library, so that was pulled off.
Yeah, so that's off.
So we don't already lost them. Well, is it still in the,
That's what he's
Total?
talking about, is spending that 200 on something else.
Right,
okay.
that was the 200 I was suggesting. for the design.
So then I was supporting it then. So
Can we go, so that if we don't spend that 200, that's a taxation item? Okay. Can we go back to the tax rate bit? It looks like you're using almost all of the unused levy capacity.
That's on the old one. I gave you an updated.
Oh, geez.
Sorry about that.
Sorry,
we're at 3.6.
looking at the wrong one.
Sorry.
3.6.
Okay, okay.
Much better.
And what does that include?
So that includes everything you've approved so far in finance committee. It includes the fire department's request that you just approved tonight. It
Okay,
includes the sanitation that you just approved tonight.
okay.
It includes the 7.29% increase for Manchester Essex.
Which is
That Model
it's
A,
the mo- Yeah,
that's the, what I consider the worst.
that's Model A included, which includes the 27%.
27%.
Insurance.
Okay,
and then for capital, it includes
Includes everything that's on this sheet.
on the sheet in the back, yes.
so if you pull 200,000,
That was already pulled.
It was already pulled.
oh, okay, okay. But how much we could do the school as an override too, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Also, I have the 300,000 for road resurfacing original request under taxation.
Right.
Right.
So, and we're moving all of that to,
No, we're just pulling an additional 400,000 out of free cash.
But we could, if you look further down, if you look in the column, the fund balance use, we could shift some of those things. For
Right.
example, we're showing
this was
the Ocean Street
confirmed.
as 100,000 on the fund balance, we could put that under taxation. And
Right,
so there's 306,000 in fund balance. So you could just shift those three items in the fund balance column over to taxation and then shift the 300 in roads over to fund balance. No harm, no foul.
All my notes are on the wrong one. But this is the same.
That didn't change.
Thank you.
just the front page.
Got it.
links.
So. If we had a 2.5% increase in the tax rate. That would leave 350, 400,000 override for the school.
Yes.
And our additional cost is like 1.1 million. Our school increase cost this year was like 1.1 million,
It's more than that. It's,
1.7,
um,
keeps changing.
Every week. We were at like 16.8 last
Do
year.
we know what page school is?
so you just.
Page 26.
Goes to 1.7.
Which one, 1.2?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, 1.2 total. Total increase
For us.
for us, yes. 1.191,
Less the decrease in the bond,
correct.
so a net increase of 1.1.
But yeah, 5.9%.
So if we held the tax rate at 2.5%, what do we think a potential override amount would be for school vote, roughly
400,
400K?
yeah, is that worth it? Or
Roughly
just do it all in
1.5%
tax
points.
rate?
Yeah.
And Sarah,
Yeah.
what would that do to the tax rate, the override for schools?
The total rate would still come in at the 3.6.
Okay.
Right.
So is it worth it for that small amount of money? And plus now we've got another 200,000 that we haven't spent
Right.
on capital and taxation. We don't do the senior center. So that will reduce this rate. Oh, no, you already took
No,
it.
it's already out.
It's already out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's already out.
Okay,
But I take your point, though. I mean, what's the, if it were a bigger chunk,
right,
I can see that,
yeah,
Right.
that doesn't seem to be,
yeah.
I feel like
And
a
now-
lot of times we're sitting here trying to guess what we think the voters want to do.
right,
And when you come up against something like education, I think sometimes if the number's big enough, it's worth it to put it in front of people and
For sure.
and let them
Right.
debate it out and make a decision. But I agree, 400K is,
it's not enough.
it's kind of,
If you did the entire
for
school.
town meeting floor, it's just
Yeah,
not enough.
if you did the entire school.
Yeah.
As an override, but that
Right.
doesn't make sense given the way the numbers are calculated.
And
Okay.
that's a good question.
Ann, sorry,
If I may, an argument that has been made about Essex's overrides is that they segregate the school and ask for an override only for the school. And that makes a target of the schools. And that if I personally am trying to convince them that if they have an override, they should make it partly for the fire department, partly for the
Yep.
police, and partly for the school. And if we go out and say, well, just to prove that Manchester will pass an override, we're going to have an override just for the school, it's really gonna undercut that argument.
okay, that's fine, that's fair.
Makes sense.
Um,
Still have to vote OPEB, right?
Well, we haven't voted on the capital yet,
Okay.
right?
Okay, you want to do that before?
So we would have another 200,000 to pay towards OPEB.
Yeah.
From taxation, if we leave. No, he's already pulled it out.
Keep wanting to spend that shit. He really wants it, 200,000.
I started that one.
Somebody needs to.
Well, it's still on the sheet, that's why I'm confused.
Right.
Yeah,
The new sheet is not in the requested adjustment.
Angie wants to put it in OPEB.
it's under the taxation list. Under Article 5.
Oh, you're right, you're right.
Yeah, I didn't move it out of that funding section.
So.
But it isn't in the tax rate.
Correct.
Okay,
Because I was pulling the requested adjusted column into the tax rate spreadsheet tab. The funding sources off to the right is
Oh, I
just
see.
like for reference
That's
only,
right. Yeah. Gotcha.
just to show where it was coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got that 305.
Yeah, I do.
oh, I see, okay, I see.
Can
what you're
Tom
saying.
voted? That's.
So the green column that says 3,015,875
That's the number.
That's the
That's
number,
the
that's the
one.
capital number that ties.
includes, but it doesn't include the 400,000 additional for the road,
Nor the rotunda.
nor the rotunda.
Which is all coming from fund balance, so should it have a net zero
Right,
tax
that
effect,
doesn't impact tax.
But the requested
amount will change.
amount would be 3,715,875. Is that correct?
No,
400 and 300?
No, it'd be an additional 1.2, right?
no, I'm sorry. What do you ask? What are you adding?
So,
The
so
requested adjustment would be,
3,915,875.
No, it'd be 4 million. We're adding 1.2 million to it.
we've got 800 from fund balance for rotunda,
400 in fund balance
400,
for roads, so that's 1.2.
1.2.
So I've got 3.215, 4.215. Is that eight?
875.
875.
Right.
Get those glasses.
And the funding sources would essentially reflect reserve free cash.
Yeah,
with, 3,015,875 from taxation and 1.2 from fund balance.
Well, we're only adding 100,000.
No, it's a little different from that.
because we're adding 1.2 coming out of fund balance.
What I just said.
Did you?
But there's already 306,
Six, so it's 1.506.
and then there's
Oh, so it's,
200 from the sewer, and there's 65 from the harbor waterway.
okay.
Are you down into enterprise funds? Is that where that 306 is coming from you're talking about?
Now, the
No,
306
again,
is this
On the last page of the,
bottom here. The fund balance is what was on the
Oh,
list, and now
okay,
we're
right, right.
adding 1.2 million. And the taxation number is dropping down to 178,490.
1.984.
Right?
yes,
And so, and the capital exclusion is still the 660.
correct.
Sewer is 200 and harbor is 65.
So again, that capital exclusion, since we already approved it, I'm just showing it continuing forward. So we're not giving it back, but we're not adding more.
Yeah, makes sense.
Did we had a capital exclusion last year for 660?
Yes,
The year before we didn't, right?
correct.
Okay, yeah.
So that was for the feasibility study. No, for Essex Elementary.
Oh, that's right, the elementary school.
Right.
Okay,
So I might, well, there might be an extra 200,000 under sewer, because we have 200,000 for plant upgrades, but we all still have the 3.1 million from the bond last year to do the full thing. Do we really need both next year? Is there
an
something?
additional 200.
No, there's an additional 200.
Yeah,
So
that we definitely want to keep that.
We need that to.
And that should be coming from the enterprise fund itself, right, Greg? That's not coming from
Correct.
taxation.
Yes, yes.
That's correct.
So that's a
Right.
surprising.
So that's built into the rate that keeps us kind of solvent for the pop-up things.
Okay. Maintenance, then.
And then for the water meters, we're expecting that we're not gonna issue that entire bond,
Not the entirety.
so that
The initial part of it will be paid for through that
With-
meter
as,
fee that's been.
before we finish the project, using the money we've collected.
Correct.
So that won't have the impact on the tax rate that we expected last year. Okay. And that will hit,
That's hitting people the bill people just got, they saw their first $25.
okay, I'm talking about when will we bond it?
The plant.
Well, so we may do an anticipation note later this spring.
Yep.
Just because cash flow is starting to
I heard
get
that.
pinched, so.
So the bond will hit the tax rate in fiscal year 26, 27. Okay,
We may have an anticipation note payment in 26,
okay,
depending on timing of everything. Right. I mean, you have a year before your first payment.
Perhaps silly question. If we already voted on that?
Yeah.
We voted on that last meeting,
Last year.
so it's being
That
implemented.
was that 7.5 divided between the
Right.
two, PFAS and meters.
and you know what I
No,
realized
sorry, I'm sorry,
is.
sewer and meters.
Sewer, yeah. What I realized is we're talking about, when we approve them, we're talking about the hit to the tax rate,
Correct,
but it's not really hitting in that year.
Correct.
right,
Yeah.
right. So it's been authorized through a town vote, but it's implemented, hits the tax rate
Whenever
when
we-
it's needed.
Yeah.
Which is,
And when is the sewer bond gonna hit?
That'll be 27 as well.
Okay,
But again, we may do an anticipation note.
yeah, yeah.
You can do an anticipation note for a while.
Yeah.
And every year that you renew it, you can pay it down. So you don't issue long-term debt
Oh, okay.
in the full amount.
Right.
So you take a note, you pay it off with the meter, with the
Exactly.
collections.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just kind of looking out, we're talking 27 now, which means 28 isn't far away. What do we think about Essex Elementary
In terms of timing.
timing?
Yeah.
I think he
So,
was talking,
yeah, so it's, I think it would be probably like a spring. It's at 28 construction, and then a couple of years at least of construction.
So approval in 27. And then starting to hit the tax rate in end of 27, definitely in 28, fiscal 28.
no, he's saying later.
I think it's to be solidified still.
Mhm.
I've only seen some very preliminary schedules.
Yeah.
But we had interviews for owner's project manager last night, actually. And some of the candidates were showing schedules. And I think I recall seeing, one of them, and this was the same OPM that we had for our memorial project.
Right.
I think they were showing a 27 fall vote to go forward, and that's to authorize final design,
Okay,
which then takes about a year.
okay.
And
So fall of 28,
yeah,
early
so-
29. So it's
yeah,
out there.
probably actually beginning of 29. It's probably
Mhm.
more accurate start.
Which would be
That's
fiscal year
later.
30.
That's later than I thought.
Oh,
It's later, right?
Oh, so that impacts your long term.
So it started.
Version 4 tomorrow.
I don't go by my data, but it starts to,
Close in on that end of debt that we were trying to trim
Right.
originally.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, by the time you
For the.
complete the construction, it's pretty close.
Yeah, and you don't, when they start construction, you don't start
Right.
paying all of that.
Right.
until they're
Again,
done.
it's increments.
That would be really good because we've been
Yeah.
thinking about 2032.
Yeah.
When now OPEB's finishing up hopefully a little earlier. And I think the key issue is we'll have three schools currently on the tax bill. And getting away from that 3-school debt problem, because the high school rolls off.
Okay, he's got something we're gonna look at for long term. Can we hold this off?
Yeah.
Till we get to long term? Is that okay?
Yeah. Definitely.
And can we
Be nice to finish this.
solidify the fiscal year 26 capital? Is that okay, or do we have to
Yeah.
talk about long term before we can solidify this?
No, I mean, just so we don't have surprises when we get into the long term I think we're talking about some of this already, like the senior center, what are the implications of going out another year?
Yeah.
So I think this is healthy, but
Yeah.
I don't think we need to go out 5 years. Just what's on the boundary of the current year we're looking at.
So we came down that we're not gonna include the 200,000 for the senior center, is that correct?
My personal
We haven't
recommendation is
voted.
we don't. I think anytime you're fundraising and have some sense of urgency, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
And bonding around it reduces the urgency.
right. And then
The fundraising experts may say differently, but.
Right.
You know.
we'll wait for that.
Okay, hold on. Nate has his hand raised. Nate?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say one thing about the senior center. When we did the rotunda, there was a lot of support and I think a lot of, demand for having some visual renderings or some guidelines of what we were actually going to be constructing. So, maybe we don't do the full 200,000, but if we could do some smaller amount that could get us through a conceptual design that can produce, 3D renderings at a, say $50,000 to get us started, that kind of straddles the line of not going full in, but providing people that might donate, a visual of what they are putting their money towards.
Thank you. What do people think of that?
Well, I appreciate the comment and, I don't know, chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
Uh,
It seems 50,000 shouldn't be very hard to come up with.
Right, that's almost kind of a fund balance,
No, but I mean for donations. to come up with.
better yet.
We've got a grant right now.
50,000 grant. It's what I was told that we're
That's-
spending.
That's for the consultant that's gonna.
So that's committed to the fundraiser.
Oh, the 50,000 we're spending. I thought that we had 50,000. I thought we were going out to hire somebody to do design. And then we had 50,000 to do that.
You got the grant to hire someone to do fundraising.
Hold on.
So, yeah, we prioritize the fundraising plan with that 50,000.
So we haven't gone out to bid on the design at all.
We have bids, we
Okay,
haven't awarded anything.
okay.
So we're awaiting funding to make that award.
Well, to a
So-
degree, that's a decision then, right? To prioritize going after the fundraiser before you add renderings. In a way,
Um,
I mean, I'm not criticizing.
No, no,
I'm
it's
just saying.
fine. It's, yeah, I was hoping that we could come up with at least some design money to move it forward.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, you want us to try to raise that privately, then we will do that.
Yeah.
I think that's the sentiment. Is that correct? Okay. So if I have this right, we're talking about approving a total of in capital projects of $4,215,875. Is that correct?
I have
The
3,915,000. Right now.
We've added 400 to the road resurfacing. And we've added 800 for the rotunda, which isn't here,
But the
We're
road
adding-
resurfacing, we already had 300,000.
Yeah.
and we're adding
one-
400 to
So
it.
it's gonna be 700.
700.
Okay.
Yeah.
I missed-
That was my understanding.
Correct, that is correct.
That's what it takes us to get to the 1.3. Whatever it is. So you agree with the 4,215,875? Okay,
Yes.
and then do we also vote on the funding sources? Probably do, right? So I move to approve, what?
Yes,
I move to approve the capital budget, fiscal year 26 capital budget in the amount of $4,215,875 to be funded $1,784,900 from taxation,
yes.
706. $1,506,000
1,506,000, yes.
from fund balance, 660,000 in capital exclusion.
From last year.
No, it's a
No,
new
just
capital
continue.
exclusion.
It's a new capital exclusion.
Sorry.
They're just 1 year.
Okay.
200,000 from the sewer enterprise fund and 65,000 from harbor funds. Does that all add up, Andrea?
You know, right.
Should.
And Sarah, for those listening, that excludes the $200,000 from the new center, the new,
It does not include any funding.
okay, does not include, okay, good.
Correct. Okay. Do I have a second to my motion?
Second.
Maury seconds. Any discussion? Are our numbers okay, Andrea?
I had moved everything from fund balance over to
Oh,
taxation.
okay.
And what does it put in for the rotunda? What's in there?
800,000.
Very good, good, okay.
And that is expecting that we won't get the CZM grant of $1 million,
Right,
that we'll get an additional 200,000 from CPC. Dean's gonna make that argument for us.
Okay. And where does that leave Pleasant Street?
It gives them 1.3 million to do
Okay,
Pleasant Street,
I
which is
understand
what
that.
he said he needed.
Right.
No.
Yep.
I think it was no too.
So Sarah, you have 1,784,900 for taxation,
Yes,
and then 1,506,000 for fund balance.
yes.
And then 660 for the capital exclusion.
Yep.
100,000 for sewer and 65,000 for harbor.
Yep. Yes.
What's the final number again for what?
4215875.
25,000,
What's the matter?
You're off.
$25 off.
$25 off?
There's no $25 on this. Oh, wait a minute.
875, and then we got 900.
You've got,
Mobile radio upgrade.
you got a
73,075.
73,750 here. You're right, it shouldn't
If
be,
you're good, I'm good.
it shouldn't be all zeros. You're right.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm $25 off.
Oh, no,
It's-
no, there's a 73,750 and a 37,350, so that comes out to the three zeros. There's no 25.
Once requested,
But
once
The
recommended.
numbers that you
Oh.
wrote, the
No,
numbers that you just
taxation,
read off.
Right. So the change was, I have $7,200 for mobile radio upgrades,
Yeah,
but in the request
No, it's
adjusted, I have
better
7,175.
Right.
That's the $25.
That's the $25 right there.
Sorry about that.
so which number is it?
To know we pay attention to this stuff.
Which number is it?
The
The 7175?
For the 7,200.
No, he reduced it, It's the 7175. So,
Yeah, 7,175.
so the,
That's a hat.
the total is
The
correct, the
taxation.
amount from taxation
Can drop by
is
$25.
875.
Correct.
1784875. Phew.
I level math.
Well,
But
And
the
in-
overall capital number is still accurate. We're
Correct.
just talking about funding
Correct, the
sources here.
difference, no, the difference is this one number was
Yep.
7175 and this one was 7200, so it should have
Yep.
been 717.
Right.
Any more discussion? Take a vote. Tom,
yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Gar,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Okay. Finish that. And the tax rate includes the school, so we don't need to, unless the school comes in a lot higher than that.
Yeah, well, there's the issue.
No, it won't. It's not gonna.
I don't think so either. Okay, so now you've
It
got,
might come in a little.
do we want to vote on OPEB tonight or wait till next week when Dan Sherman's here?
Lieutenant Sherman.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what he has to say.
There, I'd like to wait till next week when Sherman's there.
Okay,
Always something to see where.
yeah, Andrew will send us a new one.
Pretty much, it's just the capital, gets cleaned up.
Yeah, now you've got,
And my links and making sure.
yeah, you've got long-term, you got something for us?
Do you want to do that now?
Well, let's look at it. Look at it. See if there's any, I mean, you're gonna make a version 4.
Yeah.
And let's just see if there's anything else that needs to be adjusted in the version 4. How's that work?
Greg, what are you passing out?
This is a revision to the facility, long-range facility planning.
Thank you.
The last one we had received, Peter, I think was on December 4th. At least that's what I sent to Garley this afternoon. What was on my,
That was version
Thank
2,
you.
right?
yeah, it was version 2 and this is version 3.
Correct.
Greg, would you be able to send us by email tomorrow or something? Great.
Version 4.
So basically, the difference between 2 and 3 is just pushing some things out a bit. To try to not have an additional 2.5 for capital on top of a 2.5 assumed operating. Now, sometimes we can come in at 2 for operating. I mean, our history has been between 2 and 2.5 traditionally. But assuming sort of worst case, 2.5 on operating. And then what additional taxation for additional bonding? And so the top half lists the projects. And it starts off with the water and sewer upgrade, which we have already approved. That's that 7.5 million. The water meters and the sewer plant upgrades.
Right.
So the list includes that, includes dredging. That assumes that we will get $1 million in grant money from the state.
Hold on just a minute. Peter, are you following what we're doing?
Slightly. I'm afraid I don't have the sheet, but yeah.
Do you have the facility financing plan from December?
Let me take a look. I'll have to go back a ways and find out.
It was version 2.
What was the date in December? Do you remember?
It was facility financing version 2.
Okay, thank you.
So I think the
December
date was
4th.
December 4th, Peter,
Thank you.
4th, 2024.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I'm reviewing the list. So
Yeah.
dredging, PFAS, I have 19 million. So the number in millions is that first column after the project name. And then I have Tappan Street, Bennett Street, DPW garage, showing Essex Elementary, our share being 27 million. That's a guess, obviously, as all of these numbers are guesses, but if we went forward with a public safety building and some major renovation to town hall at 30 million, that should be a 36 million in resilient projects, seawalls and culverts. I'll explain that in a minute. And then 25 years from now, I'm showing a $70 million bond to relocate the sewer plant to a new home.
Which may or may not happen.
And then I show the number of years for the bonds, 10 to 30 years. So then I show revenue, different revenue sources before we get to taxation at the bottom. So I'm showing that water capital fee that we just implemented. You saw the first bill, $25 per meter per quarter. I'm assuming that we would institute a similar capital fee for the sewer operations and the sewer fee.
Isn't that a completely different theory?
Yes, it is. But it's similar in terms of relying on the enterprise fund for the fees to spend that money.
So you wouldn't put a fee and you would increase the rates?
You could do it one of two ways. You could just increase the rate, or you could identify a capital improvement fee. If it would help to explain to voters why their rates just went up so much. I'm showing the new revenues from CST starting in 28 for phase 1 and then second phase in 34. Again, lots of assumptions here, right? So, and then as we retire debt, just taking our existing debt and as we pay it down every year, it frees up money. Rather than giving that back to the taxpayers, I'm showing it coming back towards new bonds. Similarly for school debt. And then this is the line that needs some work, but the liability is being retired. So the two major liability, OPEB and the pension. So OPEB now is going to be earlier. And I only took what we were paying in. I didn't add the taking out of the fund. which we can do. So then I get, so those are all revenues that offset any need for new taxation. So up top, going back up top, so in 26, I'm showing that we have about half of that 7.5 being issued. And we begin payment. And some of that for PFAS as well. So that,
What line is that on, Greg?
so I'm up top now, back up top. I'm under FY26 column.
Okay.
And so the first line, water and sewer upgrades,
Yeah,
that
okay.
315,000 for half of that bonding, and then for PFAS.
Okay.
And so that requires new debt services of 483 and the water capital fee paying 100% of that. So we don't need any other revenue sources for 26. So then I go to 27. So then I'm showing the full 7.5 million being issued and payment being needed. Actually, probably a year ahead of myself, but this is where the fine tuning can take place. But anyways, it's instructive to walk through the model. So I'm also showing the dredging monies being needed. So I have the 287,000 of debt payments needed on that new 2.5 million.
So does the grants we receive to cover dredging, is that federal or state?
And state.
And it's not a federal pass-through?
It's not a thing.
Okay, okay.
I show additional PFAS money ramping up, the bonding for it and the project ramping up. I show the beginnings of Tappan Street, the beginnings of the DPW garage design, final design work. So that totals new total debt service of 1.8 million. And so to pay for that, I'm showing, I'm just walking down the column here, the 500,000 from the capital, water capital fee, a new sewer capital fee of 500,000. I've got some retired school, town debt and school debt, leaving me a net new tax revenue needed of 747,500. That translates to an additional tax rate of 2.5%.
Based on FY26 budget increase.
This is 27 we're looking.
Well, the 2.49, that's an increase over 2.6.
Right.
Yeah.
And that 2.5% increase raised just under 16 million. And then I show you how that 16 million is divided up by project. So of that 15.75 million, 3.75 went to the sewer upgrade project. 6 million is going into PFAS, 1.5 into the DPW facility, 2 million to Tappan and 2.5 to dredging. Everybody with me?
The one little question, I'm looking at version 2 and version 3. Has the PFAS gotten cheaper or have you just?
I pushed it out.
You pushed it out?
Yep. Yeah.
Well,
So then similar drill, walking in 28. So I was trying to get lower. So I pushed a few things out. And again, you can see at the bottom what additional monies and where they're going to. And so that requires just under a 1% additional tax. So in 27, theoretically, we've hit people up with a 5% tax increase. In 28, we're hitting them up with a 3.5. Again,
So
all
if-
the assumptions behind it, but
So if the this elementary is pushed out,
correct.
then you could push something from fiscal year 27 into 28.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So, yeah, well, I don't, in 27, I didn't have any for the elementary school. in 28, I'm showing 2 million for the elementary school.
Right, what I'm saying is if the 2 million were moved to 29,
Correct. Then
then
that,
you could move something to 28 to have
right,
smaller, yeah.
yeah, you can mix and match here.
Right.
So it just keeps going.
Yep,
And so what I'm showing is by 33, I'm alternating
Yep.
every other year. A high hit at 5% total and closer to 3 to 3.5. So by 33, we're done for a long chunk of time. We've increased the taxes for capital purposes. 10.31% percentage points. And we've raised $80 million for capital project. So then we continue on. And what I want to show you then, and then in 34. So this is where you see at the very bottom, which had normally been new taxes or new tax revenue needed.
yes,
This shows a surplus. As a negative number, that's a surplus in this rubric. So I've got 1.1 million. So that, and you see that number continuing across, that's where we start putting in money towards different resiliency projects, other culverts, seawalls, et cetera.
Oh, you just pay a dividend to the shareholders.
Yes.
Sorry,
But,
that was a joke.
right. I was looking forward to it. But, so over the 25 years or so, that adds up to $36 million that could be put towards various resiliency projects, raising seawalls, waterproofing town hall more,
The next PFAS.
et cetera, et cetera.
Great.
That's good.
So and then in 35, I'm showing, and again, this is all a lot of assumptions, right? This assumes we're going forward with the public safety building.
Yep.
Okay, big assumption. I show that in hitting in 35, that we've retired enough and we have new revenues coming in, pension paid off, CST second phase of taxation, so that we don't have to raise taxes. We're able to borrow that $30 million without raising taxes because we have these other sources coming in. You know, will this all hold true? Of course not, but it gives us at least a roadmap and a sense of what is possible.
Very helpful.
And so you can continue it out, and then finally I'm showing in 2050, I think it is, yeah, 2050, I'm showing that huge number for the sewer plant. And again, we can basically do that without raising taxes, because we have retired enough, things have, enough, just different factors.
assuming the price of doing anything doesn't increase.
Yeah, but that 70 million is a total guess.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
So I'm actually even more encouraged. I mean, this wasn't great in terms of,
But now you can adjust it
but we
more.
can adjust it by a percentage point with that, with the OPEB.
Yep.
Right. Because I didn't think about pulling in the trust monies.
Yeah.
So what was a big stretch becomes, I think, within reach.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it becomes within reach.
Is
You,
there,
you make this big assumption that you're doing all of these projects, which is a big assumption.
And
is there a similar second half to the pensions? He's not.
Yeah.
Paying extra.
Yeah, so,
pennies?
what do I show that? In 34 or 35? So in 34, I show a big increase in that in the retiree liability reality.
the 744.
Is that just not pre-funding anymore, but also taking money out?
No,
No.
So below it, I'm showing the OPEB.
Yeah.
Um,
We can't
Oh,
take,
wait a minute.
no.
I show that in above, so I can't.
we can't take money out of the retirement. All we're paying off is the unfunded liabilities. The retirement's paid by the state,
So the only,
money coming to us.
the only areas where I can show additional OPEB using the trust is in those 4 years, 30 through 33. Because I've already assumed it in the 1.205 number. I assume the non-payment to the trust.
And 29, right? We don't have anything in 29.
I did, so I started a year later.
Yeah, yeah.
So you could start a year earlier.
Yeah.
So,
But we still have the regular
Capital.
pension payments.
correct.
This is just the unfunded
Because
liability.
we're fully funded at that point.
No, we're just,
We're fully funded on our past liability.
correct, on the unfunded liability, yeah. But we still have the ongoing retirement.
Right, but it'll significantly cut that back.
Right.
So, so for example, in 29, where we show that 2.45% increase, we can take a percentage point off of that.
More than a percentage
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
2 percentage points, right?
How much are we drawing down the trust every year? That's what we don't know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Whatever that is.
1 to 2%.
Right, yeah, probably 1.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that makes it a 1% increase.
I think it's very, very helpful.
Yeah.
For a big hit is
the
fiscal year
accuracy.
27.
I would just say on the project column, just as a high altitude, quick observation. Tappan and Bennett are on the list, but if we're looking out 25 years, there probably should be a placeholder for 1 or 2 or 3 others that'll be in there.
Yes.
So just as a what if, I also think dredging, maintaining the asset of that harbor is important, and I think.
Yeah,
doing
what
a-
about showing future dredging? I'm only showing. the-
Yeah, I mean, even if you plugged in a number at, say, 2040 and started it again, it would probably be realistic, a little
Yeah.
more realistic.
And it will leave less for
Correct.
resiliency projects.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what it will
So
impact. It won't.
But there's,
It's just very helpful.
in theory, the harbor will be generating
more revenue
more
share.
money.
Right.
Assuming those new docks get in and,
Right.
but yeah, lot of variables.
Are we going to increase our fees after Gloucester?
Yeah, I saw
Gloucester
that.
increased their fees?
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep up with the Joneses.
Yep.
Okay,
So, a lot of food for thought here to
Yep.
digest.
Great,
Hopefully you find it helpful. I will do a new version.
it's great.
And,
Yeah, and if you can send us an electronic copy
Yeah,
for
and
those.
you
ones who
can,
lose
you can start
paper.
with, well, you can play with it too. You can
Yeah.
do your own assumptions, kick things around.
Great.
The formulas are there and you can. There's various assumptions.
okay, thank you.
Sarah, can I
So-
just add one thing real quick?
Yes, Jeff.
Sorry. So Maury's point, Greg, on the, you show Tappan and Bennett, and there's probably a couple others out there. This is just the kind of facility and major projects in front of us, but my understanding was the kind of 3-ish to 4-ish million normal capital, which typically on a typical year would include, projects like Walker Road or Pleasant Street or,
Yes.
Mill and Forest. Like those are kind of separate capital that are
Correct.
still, on an ongoing basis. So I think that will be some of the pipe work.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's included in the regular 2.5% per year tax increase.
Right. I just want to clarify that for,
Yeah.
there might be another
This
big,
assumes we're continuing the 4 million,
Right,
what I call regular capital.
Okay. So I guess we can wait and discuss OPEB next week. Do you have any updates, Greg?
No, I do not.
We have, well, before we go to approving minutes, let's just, because we got members of the select board here. I received the agenda for the Monday meeting joint with the select board. our meeting's posted to start at 7. At 6:30, I think there's an overview of the operational
No,
presentation,
we're gonna do that at 7.
the operational audit.
Yes, we'll start off with that at 7
Okay,
and then,
okay,
and then move on to those budget topics.
okay, yeah. So on
Yeah.
Monday.
And I'll be sent, go ahead.
On Monday, there's an operational audit presentation. And then there's to go over the fiscal year 26 operating budget, fiscal year 26 capital budget, fiscal year 26 school budget, and long-range facility plans, to go over that with the select board.
That's Tuesday.
Monday,
Monday.
March 3rd. And then on Wednesday, March 5th, we have the auditors in.
And Dan Sherman.
And Dan. And I'm gonna ask to start with the town auditors. There's a possibility I might be late. So I might need you to start the meeting.
Right.
Okay, that's why I wanna do the town auditors first. Cause I wanna hear the Dan. I don't think I will be late because I'm doing interviews, but it seems like it's gonna be over earlier than originally anticipated, so we're not interviewing as many people, so I think it won't be an issue.
I will be
So-
remote next week, just
Okay,
not that it's relevant.
okay.
Did you want to talk about the 12?
Oh. So we can't do the school until the 19th. Right? Because they're voting on the 18th.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna have a good sense of it after the 4th. So at your meeting next week, you'll have a good sense of it.
Okay. So the question is do we need to meet on the 12th? We have the annual report to do.
So that would be a good time to do the bulk of the annual report if it's,
Well, we usually don't do it in a meeting,
no, I understand.
so
Take the time.
I'm wondering if we don't meet on the 12th, we get that report out and then we can finish the report the last Wednesday, the last Thursday of the month. Well, and we'll have time on the 19th to discuss the reports if we're just doing the schools on the 19th.
It'd be wonderful to wrap it up on the 19th if you
There's
could.
no way. We can't wrap it up on the 19th if we don't have a final school number until the 18th. There's
No, I
no way.
know. Like I said, I think you're gonna know
The last week. March 27th is
if we
the
haven't
month
done-
before town
if
meeting.
we haven't done it on the 27th, and we can get it to the printer that following Monday, it'll be okay.
Okay. And I know I do have a ZBA meeting on the 26th. We should post. Okay, so we won't meet on the 12th.
We're not.
Is that everyone in agreement with that?
Yes.
That's good, because I was gonna be absent on the 12th anyway.
Oh, well, that's why we're canceling.
Yeah,
because we
sure,
couldn't
sure.
Do without you.
Uh,
Okay, so I'll have to make sure that,
So I'll send tomorrow to you the final operational audit report. It's been edited.
oh, it's been
It's
edited?
been edited.
Okay, great.
So not a major change,
Yeah.
no major changes, but some edits, correcting mistakes and a little more clarity in certain areas. So I'll get that out to everybody tomorrow.
So Sarah, just to review, so we
Yeah.
have, so I'm in March and I'm just reviewing where we've concluded on all this.
Okay,
So we have a selectmen meeting on the 3rd at 7 PM. We have a regular
Yes.
meeting on the 5th at 7.
yes,
Our next meeting after that is the 19th
at
Yes.
7.
at 7.
Yep,
And then the 27th is a meeting.
yeah, Thursday, the 27th.
Exactly.
Okay,
Got it.
I'll be away on the 19th.
okay.
I won't be here next week. I'll be out.
You'll miss all the fun.
I miss all the fun.
with the auditors.
You love that auditor stuff. Who's gonna bring the punch?
So with this joint meeting with the selectmen, you're gonna have the numbers that we've approved,
Yes,
so I don't have to be preparing anything?
no,
Just clarifying.
yep,
Okay. Um. So we have minutes to approve, but Dean, you sent comments, right?
Mhm.
That other people have not seen?
Right.
Okay, so we're gonna defer all these minutes to next week.
Okay.
And make sure that everything gets out to people.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? 2 minutes early. Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Andy moved.
Second.
Seconds. All in favor?
I.
Peter, okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
okay, thanks, Chuck.
Well, the DPW did a great job